We're going to take some time to go through the historical heading cards or the purple cards. These are the cards that help the children understand how all the stories go together and how some stories happen in the time of Moses and some stories happen way back here at the end of the Old Testament. It helps them to realize how all the stories go into this historical timeline, and it's very important that they understand that. The second thing that I think is very important about these cards is the way that she's worded the headings on these cards. They're very easy to understand, very easy for the kids to memorize, and very easy for the kids to know what card should go next. So I think it will be very helpful as we go through these cards, and you'll see it as they unfold. The first purple card we want to go through is a card called Before the World Began, God Had a Plan. This is a very important card. Don't breeze through this card, give it its proper due, or show its proper significance to the children. First of all, before the world began, God had a plan of saving us. God had a plan to send Jesus into the world. Very, very important that kids understand that. Another thing that God planned before the world began is God planned the church. The church was not an accident. It did not happen because the Jews rejected Jesus. The church was part of God's eternal plan or eternal purpose. So it's important that the kids understand that as well. What my wife Shawn and I like to do on this is we like to go through and we like to talk about how God also plans the very smallest part of His creation. And we deal a lot with animals on this card. And we might deal with one animal per week and help the kids to see how great God was at planning the world out before He even began the creation. A couple examples. You might have a herd of elephants. And the herd of elephants, when they all went to the bathroom, it would be a huge mess. You could talk to the kids about having to clean up after their dogs. Could you imagine having to clean up after a whole bunch of elephants? What a task that would be? How much shoveling you would have to do to get rid of all that manure? Well, God had a plan for getting rid of all that elephant dung. It's called the dung beetle. What the dung beetle does, it goes up to the elephant dung and it rolls it up into small balls. And it takes those balls farther away from where the actual dung was first located. And so you fertilize a greater area of ground because God planned it that way. The dung beetle will dig a hole down into the ground. And that's where it will put that dung and where it will lay its eggs. And I talk about the importance. Sometimes if you want your yard to grow well, you might poke holes in it. And what that does is allows it to breathe better and allows it to grow better and a stronger turf. Well, God did exactly that with the dung beetle. So now instead of having one little spot where it's fertilized, it's spread out over a wide spot, and you also have little holes dug all in the ground, so many feet apart, to help the grass grow as well. And then the dung beetle lays its eggs in there, those eggs hatch, it eats the dung for nutrition, and that is God's plan on how to clean up all the elephant dung when the elephants go to the bathroom. God had a great plan for that. The kids get a kick out of that. They'll chuckle, the boys will probably chuckle a little bit, but that's okay. It's part of God's plan. Another example is the hippopotamus. The hippopotamus has this red substance that comes out of its body. God planned that. Why? Because the hippopotamus was living out in a hot area where the sun was very bright. And that red substance, which we didn't know what it was for years, now we understand that it is one of the best sun blockers there ever is. Better than what we can make. And so you can even relate that when you go out to the sun. Does your mom and dad, they put sun protection on your arms, your shoulders maybe, a little bit on your nose and your cheeks so that you don't get sunburned? God took care of the hippopotamuses that way too. He made it where they produced that. That red substance that comes out of the hippopotamus also has a germ-killing agent on it. And it is able to kill the bacteria of the hippopotamuses to get cut. There are so many examples. There's a website, Dandy Designs, you can Google that. Or you can just go online and study different animals. And you learn that there are unique attributes that make them fit for the climate where they live or the purpose God has for them in His creation. Before the world began, God had a great plan. Don't go buy this card too quickly. It is a very, very important card, and the kids get a lot of fun out of that. You just place that card here, and then you're ready to go on to the second card. The second card out of these 9 that are here is called the First Fathers card. And the First Fathers card, you want them to be able to name the first fathers. Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Adam, Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Put them in order so they know who comes first, who's related to whom in this great story. You also want them to know the 3 promises that God made to Abraham. That He was going to have a big family. He was going to have a lot of land. And through his seed, all the nations of the world will be blessed. And that one seed is Jesus Christ. And you're going to see the rest of this story that we're having is how God accomplishes those 3 promises. How He gives them their land. How He makes them a great nation. And how eventually Jesus Christ comes and offers salvation to the entire world. And this is how God accomplishes those promises that he made to Abraham. You put that up there next to before the world began. You have before the world began, and you have first fathers. The third card is called Moses to the Lamb. Now what I do is I put a little gap between first fathers and Moses. I do this to symbolize there's a lot of information here that the kids really need to learn. And this is very important because what you're doing now is you're getting the kids to think and get the kids to start connecting a whole bunch of stuff together. That one thing that happens way down here is not isolated. It happened because this happened way over here. And so I like to turn whys back on kids. Kids are so good at asking the why question. Just turn it back on the kids. Make them answer the why question. Why were the children of Israel slaves in Egypt to begin with? Why? Because there arose a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph. Well, who was Joseph? Well, Joseph was second in charge to Pharaoh. Why was Joseph second in charge to Pharaoh? Because Joseph interpreted his dreams for him when he had the dreams about the 7 fat cows and the 7 skinny cows. Well, why was Joseph the one that he asked to interpret his dream? Well, it was because the cupbearer told Pharaoh about Joseph because Joseph had interpreted his dream while he was in prison. Why was Joseph in prison? Well, Joseph was in prison because Potiphar's wife had made advances to him, and he had declined those advances, and so she made up a lie about him and had him thrown into prison. Well, why was he in Potiphar's house to begin with? He was in Potiphar's house because Joseph's brothers sold him into slavery. Why did Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery? You see how we're going here? Why did Joseph's brothers sell him into slavery? Well, because they were jealous of him, because he was the favorite of his father. Well, why was he the favorite of his father? Well, he was the favorite of his father because he was the oldest of his favorite wife. Well, why did he have multiple wives? So how'd that go? Well, he married Leah first. He worked 7 years, married Leah. And then he got to marry Rachel. He had to work 7 more years. Well, why was he picking those wives to begin with? Why wasn't he in his hometown? Well, he had to go to Laban's house because he had to flee from Esau. Why did he have to flee from Esau? He had to flee from Esau because he had tricked Isaac into giving him Esau's blessing, and Esau wanted to kill him. So it goes way back. You keep going back and back and back, and it ties all this stuff together so the kids understand the importance of it. So Moses, he's talking about what happened in his life, all the wanderings through the wilderness, the spies, and all that stuff will come about through the various stories that are told through the different quarters that we study our spiritual heritage. The next card is a card entitled Joshua and Judges. It is the greatest transition of power in the history of the world. Moses was a great leader, and he passed that baton of leadership to Joshua, and it seemed like it was a seamless transition. God told Joshua, I'm going to be with you just like I was with Moses. The people said, Joshua, we will follow you just like we've been following after Moses. We trust you. It was a smooth transition of leadership. And so you can go through at the beginning, talk about Joshua, talk about the judges. Let them name the judges. As time goes on, they'll be able to tell you different things about the judges as we tell stories about that through the different quarters that we study. So you have Joshua and Judges up here as well. Well,